when you're doing what you should be doing and you're starting to see some results eventually, holy moly, the last thing you're going to do is do a lateral move. You're going to try to stay in that vein as long as you can. And that's the idea here. But if you are back on your heels, problem solving, and then production and income drops on top of it, then you're just going to make moves out of scarcity. And they're lateral moves. Welcome everybody to the podcast today. Kind of excited. Got something on my mind I want to chat about today, and it ties back in with real estate motivation. In particular, some strategies and methods of how to help real estate professionals focus on what they need to do to succeed in the industry. And this could apply to anybody, really. I mean, I think I'm probably primarily talking to those in leadership positions, right? How do we get the agents that we manage or lead on our teams, in our brokerages, to stay focused so they don't get on the struggle bus and constantly say, I don't have enough business, nothing's happening, I'm miserable. How do we get them into that growth mindset where they're in more of a business generation, career growth place where they can go forward? There's that. And then, it could also apply to the individual agents themselves, right? How do I motivate myself? How do I stay focused? And there's some really important mindsets and techniques that we can apply for that. And then lastly, I think I can also be speaking to the leaders directly, because they often need to be motivated and stay focused too. Because here's what often happens. Often we get into, no matter, whether you're any of those people or where the problem is, we get on struggle buses and then we look for other things to motivate us, right? So we look for external things rather than internal things, because it's easier just to solve the problem. I'll move to this or I'll go there. And you see a lot of people making lateral moves, especially lately. It's been a different last year when, the interest rates coming up and sales volume dropping. You've seen one of the colder, winters and falls, and even into the spring by way of at least sales volume than we've seen in a long time. And, rather than focus on what we need to do to increase our income or our career path or just grow in a positive way, we tend to look externally to make lateral moves. And, I'm not trying to say that all lateral moves are bad. I'm really not saying that, but it's very important that we make sure we don't do kind of an interior check to make sure that we're doing everything we can before we decide we need to make some changes, right? And by way of changes, we see it industry wide, and I kind of saw it coming. I've been referring to the winter of 2022, 2023 as the Great Migration. You're seeing people move all over the place, right? They're moving out of the business. They're moving to, they're not renewing their dues. They're leaving real estate teams, going off on their own, leaving their own business, going to real estate teams, moving from brokerage to brokerage, from brand to brand, from position to position. You're seeing career moves all over the place. And that's people just reacting to changes externally in the market rather than internally changing what they do. They're not actually pivoting. And it's very interesting because, when we do that, then we have to make big, once we make these lateral moves, then we have to justify them to ourselves. So we look to do that outwardly, right? I am so happy I did this. This changes everything. It's the proverbial, grass is always greener concept. And we got to be very careful. We don't keep jumping around looking for other things that'll make us happy when, the grass is green where you water it. So internally, what are we doing to make sure that we're getting back and we're doing our part? Because quite frankly, if we make a lot of lateral moves, it gives us something to do other than just sit and suffer without a lot of production. So it gives us some busy work to do, but it's lateral. None of that busy work gives us any type of income. So, if it's changing signs or getting this or going to meet these new agents or going to lunch with the new people in my new office, or now I'm on a team and all of these different things, we'll find ways to tell ourselves that we're going to succeed that way, but we're still going to have to do the same things we needed to do when we were in our previous situation. Typically, we were not doing things like lead generating to get more listings. We weren't recruiting to get more agents. We weren't putting systems in place. We weren't doing some of the difficult activities that we knew we needed to do to get the results we wanted. We found ways to blame, justify, and complain about our situation to then say, okay, I'm going to do a lateral move which is going to really keep me occupied with something to do, so I don't have to sit and it's almost like a denial mindset, right? So we got to be very careful we don't get into that, and we don't just think about grass is always greener all the time. And one of the ways so avoiding lateral moves is very, very key. I mean, because you're going to see a lot of real estate agents, the vast majority of them go from 3 to 4 to 5 brokerages, and they're learning all the time. And they'll jump around, they'll jump from this and they'll jump from that. You see it all the time. Oftentimes it is, well, if you had to just changed your behavior, your habits, things would have been different. Because there aren't a lot of magic pills or everybody would be making that move. It would be very, very clear. And you're having to see a lot of people looking for those external stimulus, like, oh, this is fun now. Now I want to be a coach, or now I want to be a leader, or now I'm going to be a sales manager, or now I'm going to try this, or now I'm going to be this. And now, so I reinvent myself. But then you start to find out, wow, the same struggles exist there. The whole key is we got to make income. I'd rather see you build bridges that you can walk across. And what I mean by that is you stay focused to see through your business, build it up, and then add to it rather than just blow it off and move on to the next thing. You have multiple pillars of income when you do that, and you keep growing. You see it all the time with our coaching clients at Icenhower Consulting. They grow up their business, they get it stabilized in place where it doesn't take as much of their time. Maybe they've got some buyer's agents, some administrative staff, other team members, so that we get some time freed up for that lead agent, that team leader, and then maybe they can open up a mortgage company, or maybe they have a property management company, or maybe they get more time with their friends, or they invest in stock market, whatever it is. But you start increasing those pillars. You buy rentals, flip houses, whatever. And you add more pillars, you build more bridges that you can walk across. You don't blow up the bridge behind you. So lateral moves don't do that. When you're just jumping from here to there to here to there, it's very tough. And one of the keys to that is remembering to respond to difficulty. Don't react to it. There's a big difference in my mind between responding and reacting. And responding is more of a thoughtful process where we actually contemplate pros and cons and do an internal checkup from the neck up and make sure, hey, I'm doing everything I can to succeed in the situation I'm already in. Where reacting is saying, I'm struggling and I'm just going to do this to get away from it. It's more of an emotional move. It's reactive. It's done out of haste, anger, scarcity. As opposed to responding is thoughtful, it's knowledgeable. It's what a business person does. Business people are responsive, and they look at all the data and they make sure they're doing their part, because if they're not doing their part, then they make a big lateral move change to a different company, organization, profession. What'll end up happening is they're going to take the problem with them. If they are the problem already, if it's their inability to generate business or recruit or whatever it is that's tough in real estate that gets everyone the success and results they want, if they can't business generate, they can't do those activities, if they can't make themselves use a CRM, if they can't make themselves do technology, if they can't make themselves time block, use systems, implement systems, save money, all those things that aren't fun but get everyone the results they want, if you still carry those problems with you into a lateral move, sooner or later, the novelty of that lateral move is going to wear off. The excitement of getting new business cards and signs and meeting new friends and having new lunches and all the social media announcements about how happy you are at your new home, all of that will start to dwindle. And those old problems will start to kind of resurface. And there we go through a cycle again. Until we look inwardly and solve those problems and realize there aren't magic pills floating around out there. And typically in real estate, those tough activities, they resolve around growth. Growth is hard. Everybody wants to grow. But once they realize that growth involves things like, from an agent perspective, lead generation activities, making contacts, using CRMs, working with your database, setting up action plans, reaching out and contacting people different ways. All of those different things are tough. And we tell her, and then be able to do them, we have to do terribly uncomfortable things like get other people for accountability, like coaches, mentors, accountability partners. Oh, accountability is not a fun word either. Systems. You know what I mean? Like your CRM, like dashboards and scoreboards, action plans, things like that, business plans, all those things aren't fun. Once we start to realize that, all of a sudden it's, oh boy, I don't want to do it. Motivation takes that focus. We have to ensure we've done that, because no matter where you go, those are going to be the keys to success. You will run into that glass window face first, really, really hard sooner or later. You just can't tell quite where the depth perception is and where that window is, but you're going to hit it sooner or later if you don't. And in real estate for agents, it's usually lead generation, business generation, and those type of systems and structures and habits we talked about. For leaders, oftentimes the problem is recruiting. They fall into a management mindset, and all they want to do is manage problems in the office, right? And they just think there's so many fires to put out. Almost every broker manager I talk to at some point thinks, well, I got to play deal doctor for everybody. And they're always coming to me with these problems, and they just don't have time to recruit or grow. So what they do is they start telling themselves they're going to be too selective, and we just really want to take certain agents, the ones I have, and maybe the other ones that just happen to come to me. Those are the agents they end up just wanting. It's the selection process becomes crazy, but it's all really just to avoid the act of recruiting, which is very humbling and not fun. You got to reach out to agents that barely sell anything, make a lot less money than you as a leader, and sit down and have them decide whether they're going to deal with you or, you're wooing someone, you're humbling yourself to get to know people. That, if done incorrectly, certainly is work. It's work. You're asking for the business just like you're telling your agents to with their clients. So that becomes the tricky part there. So then we start changing our whole business model around it. We're just going to manage. And then we become problem solvers all day. And when you become problem solvers, and this is true for leaders and agents, when all you do is solve problems and you completely avoid any growth, like recruiting or getting more business or lead generating or any of that stuff, you don't push your business forward, and all you do is say, I'm just too busy to do those things. I'm just going to handle problems as they come at me. You're in a negative place because all you're dealing with is problems. And even when you solve them, you get in problem solving mode. So then you're going to find new problems, and you're just going to be a problem solver, which means you're always looking for negative. You're always looking for what's wrong. And that puts you in a very negative state. You will get tired of that if you are just a constant problem solver without any growth, because you'll never see a light at the end of the tunnel. You're never getting to where you want to be. You're slowly killing all your dreams of, maybe it's like getting out of production or selling more or running a team or getting more free time back or making more money or whatever your goals are, because you're too busy to grow. You're too busy to grow because you're just in problem solving mentality, and you keep telling yourself that. So what do? You burn out, and then what do? You make lateral moves. That's what happens next, because you're burnt out, you're tired, and if at anything things start to drop, like production drops or income drops because of seasonality or interest rate rises or what have you, anything that can cause sales volume to drop in the market, now you literally have no cushion. You're like, I got to move. I can't take it anymore. I was already miserable. Now I got no income, and I'm miserable. Now you make lateral moves. And that's what happens to most people. Okay. And that's why agents fail. So we as leaders, as motivators, need to help agents see that. Using some of the time, just telling people this is often enlightening to people, right? They're, oh, wait a minute, I never thought of it that way. Right. But if you're in activities and you actually are making it happen by doing the tough stuff, kind of like when you're going to the gym or you're working out or you're eating healthy, you feel real good and you tell everybody about it. And you wonder how to get back to that place when you stop. It's kind of the same idea here. When you're doing what you should be doing and you're starting to see some results eventually, holy moly, the last thing you're going to do is do a lateral move. You're going to try to stay in that vein as long as you can. And that's the idea here. But if you are back on your heels, problem solving, and then production and income drops on top of it, then you're just going to make moves out of scarcity. And they're lateral moves. So they don't really solve your problem, certainly not long-term, usually not short-term. They just help you emotionally and trick your own brain into thinking you're doing something productive. Then you look for ways after you make the emotional move to go back and logically justify the decision, which is what everybody does. People always buy things from a sales mentality emotionally. Then they go back and logically try to justify why they did it. And that's always very easy to do. I don't care who you are. You say, well, now I'll be able to sell more because I'm here, or this environment, or I need to get away from that, so you go back and then you justify as to why it was a good move. And then you talk to other people and get them to tell you the same thing. And you're talking to a guy who's, personally over 35 years recruited thousands of agents all over the place, opened offices, ran mortgage companies, seen millions of people migrate, been responsible for a lot. And generally speaking, until that agent changes internally, you're not going to see a big change. You're going to see steady growth over time with years of experience in the business and growing a database. But for those that really succeed at a high level, they change their behaviors and habits internally, right? So how do you tell when to change versus just buckle down and refocus on those growth activities? Or should I change my environment? I think the key is you have to first say, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? That's the key. I mean, am I lead generating? Am I the problem here? Or am I just blaming someone else like a victim? That's really the key, is can you do that? And leaders, our job is to be holding our agents accountable. Like, they've got to know what they should be doing. And you've got to constantly remind them, and don't think that just because you told them they're going to do it. I mean, that's just not how it works. I mean, you have to constantly, a very small percentage of agents actually do what they should do to succeed. And it's the person that constantly stays with them and doesn't give up on them and keeps telling them until they hear it just the right way, the right amount of times, at the right time of their life, before it actually clicks and they do it. Talking to someone who's seen it a million times, finally click in magically after 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, you name it. They finally do it. They just heard it the right way at the right time or whatever. So we got to stay with them, because that's going to kind of preemptively strike lateral moves. They're going to be reminded constantly too that, hey, maybe it is me. Maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing, right? So we got to keep trying to find different ways to motivate and encourage by oftentimes just giving them little helps and encouraging positivity through our encouragement, not berating or saying you're not doing what you're doing. We're trying to stay positive to refocus them and tell them it's okay. This happens all the time. Don't beat yourself up because you didn't do it and say, this is not for me. It's actually pretty common that people repeatedly struggle before they break through, especially in real estate. So we got to first, when you're determining whether to change, always do an internal check. Am I doing the growth activities, or am I just in problem-solving mode all the time? Where is it that I wanted to be again? What was my goal? Where's my finish line? Where am I trying to get there? What do I need to do to get there? What are the activities that I can control to do it? And typically those activities are going to be painful and not fun in anything. The medicine you take that makes you better often doesn't taste well. So, accountability is no fun. Systems growth, lead generation, no one likes that stuff. It's the hard, it's the push-ups, it's the dieting. It's the difficult activities, but you don't need to like the activities. You just got to like the results, and they will motivate you. But you got to be focused on the results, and you have to be committed to the activities. That's the key to it, guys. So focusing our energy on getting listings, getting buyers, recruiting agents, on growth, on setting up systems to help us do those things. Focus those energies rather than just servicing them, handling our existing transactions, handling our agents' problems. That's the key. So we got to make sure that we have adjusted and allotted time in our schedule and putting those systems in place to help us do that before we look for lateral moves. That's my advice, guys. I hope this helps. Thanks for coming to the podcast. Can't wait to see you on the next episode.